Kia ora rā koutou, te whānau whānui, tēnei te mihi kia koutou, e huri mai ana ki tēnei wāhanga. This Ngāpuhi podcast, te hau kainga, and we saw a few people just sort of hanging around our caravan, and we've sort of nabbed them, and we've done very well. And do excuse me for reading this out, because we've only just met. Melissa Darby, tēnā koe, Race Relations Commissioner. Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
That's a big job. Welcome. And also Tepene Stephen Rainbow, Human Rights Commissioner, Chief Human Rights Commissioner.
Kia ora.
Now, Miki kia korua, this is really special that you guys are here. So thank you for being in our space, which is your space too. So if I can start with you, E Hoa, tell me a little bit about your mahi, and like you would have got a brief, I'm thinking, an induction. What do you do? Why are you there?
The Human Rights Commission in New Zealand, Te Tika Tangata, has quite a unique role.
Yeah.
We have a statutory requirement to make sure that all the groups in New Zealand, all the diverse groups, get on harmoniously, and that's explicitly stated in our legislation. And we have a work program that reflects that, and we have dedicated commissioners to Race Relations, Melissa, my valued colleague. We have a Disability Commissioner whose responsibility is primarily to look after the rights of disabled people.
Beautiful.
And we have an Equal Employment Opportunities Commissioner whose primary responsibility is to make sure that, particularly around issues like gender, for example, that employment and other opportunities are provided equally for everybody. So we were set up nearly 50 years ago, just like the Waitangi Tribunal.
Yeah.
And we are there really to give effect to two key pieces of legislation. One is the Human Rights Act, which set us up, and the other is the Bill of Rights Act. Bill of Rights Act.
Yeah.
And we've also got a number of international treaties that we've signed up to over the years under successive governments, which are about human rights, that we are responsible for effectively monitoring and making sure that New Zealand is performing. And we also provide a complaints process, if I can describe it that way. So we have about 5,000 people a year come to us, either with inquiries or complaints about discrimination, and we have that part of our key mahi is to deal with those issues on behalf of those people.
Kiwis are renowned for fairness being a big part of our culture. So that's, that's something I'm hearing from your kōrero. It's about being fair and honourable to everyone.
It's about being fair and honourable, and I agree with you. That is a part of the Kiwi psyche.
Yeah.
But the whole concept of universal human rights, which started after the Second World War, about 1948, with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was all based on the one idea: every human being, by virtue of being a human being, is entitled to certain inalienable rights simply because they are human. It doesn't matter about their ethnicity, their religion, their ethnic background. We are all entitled to those fundamental rights. And we have the responsibility at the Human Rights Commission for upholding those in a New Zealand context. So we're a national human rights institution, and there are about 100 of those around the world in various countries, but we are that unique mahi holder in the New Zealand context.
Yeah, beautiful. Tēnā koe. And Melissa, you've got a big job, and we were just going back, and Ming Foon was before you.
Yes,
an amazing New Zealander.
Yes.
Chinese man who speaks fluent te reo.
Yes.
And then, of course, one of our greatest sporting heroes.
That's right, Dame Susan Du Bois.
Thank you. I just forgotten her name. I had a komatua blank.
That's all right.
Yeah. So now you're sitting. We call it te tūru wera, which is like the hot seat.
Right.
How long have you been there? And tell us about what you do.
So actually 3 new commissioners, including myself and Chief Commissioner here, came on board about 3 months ago.
Okay.
So we've spent the first couple of months leading up to Christmas getting to know the ins and outs of the Commission, what we ought to do and what the role was about, and then hitting the ground running in 2025 for a 5-year term for the 3 new commissioners and plus the fourth commissioner that Stephen mentioned. So as Stephen mentioned, a real focus on harmonious race relations in this country. Certainly something I want to bring to my time in the role is looking at the positive contributions that the multitude of ethnic groups that call New Zealand home have contributed to this country. and finding points of connection. You know, we're fortunate to live in such a beautiful place, and I think there's a real opportunity to celebrate some of the good things about our country, not to then gloss over issues that we may have, but to find ways to work through those that contribute to us all ideally getting along at the end of the day.
Yeah, tēnā koe. We're at Waitangi.
Aye.
Okay. We're in an environment that is politically demanding for us as Māori. Mm-hmm. And even, I mean, you won't believe it, but I'm actually a gold card member. I'm a ko-mātua. I know what you're thinking. Jesus God, he's good for his age. But one of the challenges that we've had is, and I put this to both of you, that a lot of the generation before me and even myself had to change our names to get a job. Right. Systemic racism, people get labelled just by the way we look and stuff. I'm actually really hopeful about the future. But that's something, because we're in Waitangi, I want to bring up, that's something that our people still struggle with after all this time. You guys got comments on this, or how do you think we're going in this country?
I think we've come a long way. Yeah. My father, he uri tēnei no tauranga moana, ko Ngāti Rangi no te iwi. So he grew up in a similar perhaps time where children had to change their names, where te reo wasn't able to be spoken, and where we didn't have things like the Waitangi Tribunal and other even initiatives in schools and so on that could support or contribute to the te ao Māori flourishing, I guess.
Yeah.
And we've come a long way in that regard, and I think that we should celebrate that. Does that mean we rest on our laurels? No. I think that we want to continue to work together, you know, as I said earlier, in this country. Yeah.
What about you, Tipina? What are your thoughts on that, kōrero?
Pio, if we're going to have an honest conversation, then I have to say that if we look at the global environment and we look at what's happening in Europe and the States, because we are most closely related, obviously, to the Western world, then the polarisation and the division and the breakdown in social cohesion in all of those societies is evident here. Yeah. And it really worries me. It really worries me, because the one thing that we should learn from history is that when social cohesion dissipates, when people are divided against each other, that the outcomes are generally not good. And that's what the 20th century in particular demonstrated. And the Māori Battalion, the 28th Māori Battalion, played a critical role in defeating the Nazis at the Battle of El Alamein, because fascism was rife in Europe at that time and causing enormous destruction and loss of life. So it really worries me that we're losing some of that potential, and you referred to Kiwis having this fair go for all approach, that we're losing a bit of that, hey, let's sit down and have a kōrero about this over a cup of tea. And we're getting into these social bubbles. Silos on social media and yelling and shouting at each other. And it worries me. It worries me because that breakdown, and it's very easy for a Pākehā like me to say that social cohesion is important. But if you look at the alternative to that, which is getting people divided and then setting them against each other, the consequences of that can be quite dramatic and destructive.
In my immediate family, we don't have a them and us attitude, because if you have that, then you'll lose the opportunity to even learn more. We can go back and look at the promises that have been broken and broken and broken and broken, mai rāno, and that's the attitude of Māori still, because one of my Pākehā bros, who is like a brother to me, actually owes me a bottle of
I've got a few like that too.
Just bro, why is the reaction to this present government being so fierce and being so pronounced and all the rest of it? I says, bro, we have to overreact just to bring it back into a place where we can, we have to be heard. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I think, well, in my previous role before taking on this position, I worked at the University of Waikato working specifically with children in whānau and early learning in particular.
Yep.
And there's often a range of, invariably a range of things that contribute to particular outcomes. And so I think that while there maybe some challenges in various levels within society, if you like, whether it's government level, local government and so on. And we don't want to be, glossing over those. We want to maintain our sort of critical eye on systems and so on. I think we need to have more honest conversations, and that relies on good relationships, on open dialogue, on finding points of connection, and on really listening to one another, not on just flinging mud from side to side. That's never going to end well. And be prepared to, I guess for me, look at, Māori never ceded sovereignty under the treaty. And so how can we use that to our own advantage in our everyday life? I think that there are messages that are really important too, and pretty empowering. I know that they really resonated with a lot of the whānau and children that I worked with in previous times. Yeah,
it's funny you guys talk about celebration, which I think is right, but we just had a lot of rangatahi in the last kōrero talking about, no, this is not a celebration because we've got so many... so much more ground to cover, What do you think? That's the young ones coming through. I think the kōhanga lot or the kōhanga...
generation.
Yeah, kōhanga generation, Ngāti kōhanga are pretty exciting. How do you guys feel about, you've seen this upsurge of te reo Māori and all the stuff they know. I think there's some great leadership there.
I'm looking forward to hearing some of these rangatahi voices tomorrow, because the Human Rights Commission has got a stall here tomorrow.
Yeah.
And one of the big foci of that is going to be hearing people's stories, for hearing firsthand, having people talking directly to us.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to that very much. But Pia, I have to say that when we talk about disappointment, disillusionment, and without in any way wanting to detract from what you've said about tangata whenua, I can tell you that that's the general feeling among the population across all groups, actually. We've lost faith in our democracy. We've lost faith in our institutions.
Yeah.
And this is very, very dangerous indeed.
Yeah.
Now, some people feel that more raw, in a more raw way than others, because they can see the consequences every day in their lives. But there's a general...
twice shy.
Exactly. But there's a general sense about this.
Yeah.
And this is not good for the future of Aotearoa, because actually there's been some extraordinary things achieved in this country for all people.
Yeah.
If you consider how few of us there are, and the fact that we still provide universal health care and universal education and these things in a country of this size, it's pretty remarkable. We need to celebrate those things. We also need to be challenging our leaders about how is it that we can restore faith in our institutions. And that's particularly, I think, a very raw issue for young Māori in particular.
Yeah.
I think as well, in my previous life, I suppose, I worked a lot with stories, telling stories to children and whānau, and how we can draw strength from those, and obviously go on to a life of flourishing through those early, whether they're pūrākau or other types of stories. And we need to think about some of the stories that we're telling in our country as well. Warts and all, yes, but also the good stuff, because there is a lot of good stuff that we, are fortunate to live in such a beautiful place.
Yeah. There's some of us, and we're lovely. We're great people that actually don't like being called Kiwi because I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what the qualifications are to be a Kiwi.
I've been keeping my eye out for them. I'm heard they're in the bushes around here. I haven't seen one. I go to bed early.
And a lot of New Zealanders, in the old days when I was growing up, it was rugby, racing and beer. Yeah. And I work predominantly in a non-Māori situation. And I quite often ask some of my Pākehā whānau, what do you think is a good treaty partner? What I'm going to ask you guys the same.
But Pia, this comes back to an absolutely critical point that you've made. Pākehā have to take responsibility for working out our own whakapapa, our stories, to use Melissa's language. We need to be clearer about what it means to be Pākehā, to be of Anglo-Saxon extraction, living in this country with tangata whenua.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real opportunity there for Pākehā to do that. We've tended not to focus so much on that, although it's interesting, older generations get into things like family history and local histories.
Yeah.
But we're pretty good at desecrating our history. And don't forget, of course, we're the last place on earth to be settled by humans.
Yes.
And then Pākehā even much later than that.
Yeah.
So we Pākehā have a particular opportunity in that space.
Yeah, I agree
reckon
with you.
to work out what it means, because of course there are answers to it. Because you mentioned one of them earlier. You said give everyone a fair go.
Yeah.
That's actually part of being Kiwi.
Yeah.
But there are other things as well.
Yeah.
And live and let live is something that's heard.
Yeah.
Now, I know that these are cliches, but the reality is that they do demonstrate and illustrate that there are some shared values. And I would suggest that they are shared between Māori and Pākehā.
Many.
Actually.
Many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to focus more on those things.
Yeah, yeah.
But Pākehā have got a responsibility in this space.
Yeah. Your moia, your dreams, you're new at the job. It's a big job, both of you. Your dreams for the future.
I'd love to see us be able to really talk to one another and be able to have difficult conversations, but to be able to have those with this kind of outcome of wanting to sort of resolve differences. And I know that might sound a bit sort of cliche and easy and, but find those points of connection, find our similarities, see each other as humans, as well as, different, Māori.
I think you're fantastic, and I agree with what you're saying. But, Māori are tired of having conversations with the unqualified. People say, let's have a public forum about something. I know half the public don't know anything about the history of this country. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying because my dream's the same as yours.
Yeah.
But, you just got, and these guys are listening. They're ticking the boxes sometimes, but are they really listening? Do they have the same dream, eh?
Absolutely. And look, that without a doubt, you get a lot of people who've come into, to be fair, roles just like this, and they might make statements like that and collect a paycheck and then leave at the end of whatever term and what's changed. And so I'm, I guess, ready for that challenge, and we'll keep speaking out on these things because, like Stephen said, the alternative isn't good. We've got to find ways through this.
Yeah.
It ain't going to be easy all the time.
Sure that.
But if we have this shared vision, if you like, of wanting to get along as best as we can and wanting to make this country even better than it already is, then I think that, that's not a bad place to start at least. And there's going to be some bumps in the road, no question. We don't always have to agree. That's also okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we have to hate each other if we disagree, though.
We're allowed to disagree. We're not allowed to disrespect.
That's the one. That's the
I
one.
like that.
Yeah, I like
I'm
that.
going to use that from now on.
It's yours. The other thing too is, and we can help. We can help you guys.
I'm already thinking I'm going to come and visit your parenting place because that sounds awesome.
But, just sitting in that chair, there's no good for people like me who are broadcasters and been communicating with Māori for many, many years to say, oh, well, where you go. See how you go. No. Our dreams are the same. So, whatever we can do to achieve that.
Awesome.
Ko tātou.
Aye,
Your
kia ora.
whakaaro. I've even forgotten the question, so you're good.
Yeah, well, I can remember it.
Yeah. That's why you're in that job, mate.
That's good because I can't.
Pio, I'm going to be a little bit more, shall I say, less of idealism and more practicality.
It's good.
If we don't find some practical ways of having dialogue, mediation, we're going to end up with unrest.
Right.
And I think this is a very real prospect, unfortunately, around the Western world, but it's also a prospect here as well. So I want to know, and this is where I'd really love to tap into the experience of people like you, what are the practical things that we can do to address some of these very real grievances and move forward? What are the practical things Pākehā can do to actually say, well, actually being a Kiwi means a fair deal for all. So I want to get really focused on some practical things, and in particular, what is the role of the Human Rights Commission in facilitating those kinds of dialogue so that we avoid some of the
20th century history.
for example.
I think one of the things when you look at our Pākehā whānau, okay, who, I'm just thinking of Anne Salmon, people who have just come in and sat, come in and listen. Like you guys, come in, sat, listen, go back, talk again. That's the kōrero. Kanohi ki te kanohi, face to face. And you've brought this up a few times, so that's sticking in my brain about something that we all need to do. Aroha conversation, informed conversation for a common goal. Cheers.
Kia ora pai.